Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Michal. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on Tuesday that peace talks on the war in Ukraine could possibly start as soon as this winter. This comes as Poland prepares to host a series of meetings on ending the conflict, most notably with Emmanuel Macron on Thursday.
I'd like to inform you that I will have a series of talks concerning primarily the situation beyond our eastern border. As you can imagine, our delegation will be responsible for, among other things, what the political calendar will look like, perhaps what the situation will be like during the negotiations which, although it's still uncertain, may start in the winter of this year. I really want Poland to be the country that will not only be present but will set the tone for these decisions that are to bring us security and secure Polish interests.
And Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk will host his Estonian counterpart Kristen Michal in Warsaw on Wednesday for a bilateral meeting. The war in Ukraine is expected to be at the top of the agenda. The heads of government will discuss military aid for Ukraine as well as further sanctions against Russia. The two leaders will also touch on the subject of security in the region and preparations for the NATO summit in The Hague in 2025. In addition, the talks between Tusk and Michal will also focus on the priorities of the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union, which begins on the 1st of January. A joint press conference will be held after the meeting. Donald Trump, despite his ambiguous stance on NATO and urging Kyiv to make a deal with Russia, is trusted by almost half of all Ukrainians. That's according to the latest report by the Ukrainian New Europe Center. The future US president is trusted by some 44.6% of Ukrainians. The authors of the report attribute this support to Trump having a more decisive and clearer approach to solving the Russian-Ukrainian conflict than Biden. However, according to the report, the leaders most trusted by the Ukrainians are European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Poland's President Andrzej Duda. Both are trusted by 65% of Ukrainians. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has met with US President-elect Donald Trump in his Mar-a-Lago residence in Palm Beach, Florida. This is the second time this year that the Hungarian Prime Minister visited Trump at his Florida home. While at Mar-a-Lago, Viktor Orban also met with Elon Musk and future National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. The meeting was brief, with none of the participants giving any public statements after the talks. While the topic of the meeting was not disclosed, unofficial reports and onlookers suggest it might have had to do with the Ukrainian efforts to repel the Russian invasion, as well as possible peace scenarios. Both Trump and Orban have previously supported the idea of negotiating potential peaceful solutions to the conflict.
Viktor Orban has done a tremendous job in so many different ways, highly respected all over Europe.
Thousands of pro-EU protesters rallied against the Georgian government Tuesday evening in Tbilisi. The protest marks the 13th consecutive night that Georgians have been out on the streets demanding new elections as well as the resignation of Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze. People on the streets of the Georgian capital could be seen waving Georgian and European Union flags and blowing horns and whistles. Last night's protests came after the European Union said it could punish the Georgian authorities for their brutal crackdown on demonstrators. The nation has been plunged into turmoil since the ruling party, accused of moving the country towards Russia, claimed victory in the October parliamentary elections. Many of those standing firm in front of the Georgian parliament claimed that they do not wish to return to the days of the Soviet Union. Security Europe. That's the slogan of Poland's presidency in the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2025. The motto and the country's priorities were revealed earlier today by the Polish Prime Minister for EU Affairs. More spending on defense and lowering energy prices will be some of Warsaw's primary objectives.
European security will be on top of the agenda during Poland's presidency and the Council of the European Union.
Security Europe. We want this motto, taking more responsibility when it comes to our safety, to be the main topic of discussions in the EU.
Behind the catchy slogan hides a wide range of goals. These will be divided into 7 aspects of security: external and internal safety of the European Union, but also information, economic, energy, food and health security. At a press conference on Tuesday, Polish ministers also revealed the country's official logo for the presidency. It was designed by Jerzy Aniszewski, the author of the logo of the Solidarity Trade Union, the movement which brought down the communist regime in Poland in the 1980s. Today, however, Europe is facing different challenges. One of those is bringing down energy prices, which are currently higher than in the United States and China.
One key element that we see is that we lack infrastructure, also infrastructure between member states. So if you want to see more renewables in the grid, then the grid has to be stronger.
As the holder of the rotating presidency, Poland will be choosing the topics of legislative discussions between EU ministers and the Council for the next 6 months. These discussions won't be easy, especially in the context of Germany and France going through major political crises.
If there will be no stable government in Germany, if there will be no stable government in France, I would suspect that the discussions will of course take place, but the decision-making process will be postponed or will not be to the extent it could have been without these changes happening.
Despite these unknowns, there is a lot of hope inside the bloc when it comes to the Polish presidency, especially since Poland will be taking over from Hungary, which has so far acted like a black sheep in the EU when it comes to supporting Ukraine and cutting Europe's dependence on Russian energy.
We are aware of the difficulties in the talks between the Council and the European Parliament during the Hungarian presidency. We, on the other hand, are open to discussions to ensure effective cooperation with both the European Commission and the Parliament.
Another unknown is the approach of new US President Donald Trump, both to the war in Ukraine and to trade with the European Union. Cutting aid to Kyiv and imposing new tariffs on goods are a distinct possibility when Trump comes back to office. About the same time, Poland will begin its presidency in the Council. More energy security, investments in defense, less regulations, but more competitiveness. And these will be the main focuses of Poland's presidency in the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2025. Europe needs to take more responsibility for its security. That's the main message of the Polish government. From Warsaw, Kazimierz Łysiak, TVP World.
And with Poland's presidency of the Council of the European Union itching closer with each passing day, the focus is on Warsaw's agenda during its 6 months at the helm. In an exclusive interview for TVP World, Tomasz Zając from the Polish Institute of International Affairs shared what he thinks are Poland's priorities for its presidency.
The empire has outstretched itself. They don't have just enough resources, and obviously it's a domino effect when different pieces start to collapse all at once. But that's obviously an evidence that the resources are not enough. Now, a lot depends on what would happen in Ukraine for the stability in Russia. Actually, this ceasefire agreement that so many people are talking about could be the rescue for Vladimir Putin. It can be his way out because it would remove the major burden that his political and economic system currently has at the moment.
And that was one of the leaders of Russian opposition, Ilya Ponomaryov, referring to the challenges of the war in Ukraine. We apologize for the technical difficulties. The footage that we have referred to earlier will be, of course, presented during our subsequent news bulletins. And now we are returning to our schedule and moving on to our next story. A special series of events has kicked off in Brussels, highlighting the European Union's continuous support of those protesting the authoritarian regime of Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. TVP World's EU correspondent Angela Skiunis spoke to a leading Belarusian opposition figure at an art gallery in the Belgian capital about why the world should be watching Minsk in January and February during the upcoming presidential elections.
As Belarus readies itself for a presidential election early next year, the EU is keen to show its support for the plight of the people who are opposing the 30-year reign of the current president, Alexander Lukashenko. And now the guest that I have here today is going to explain the significance of those people that are protesting Lukashenko. This is Alina Kaushuk, the editor-in-chief of Belsat news organisation. Hello, Alina.
Hello, Angela.
So why is this exhibition important?
This is the very opening of Belarusian Day in Brussels. This is the unexpected and unprecedented event here in Brussels where we fully concentrated on Belarusian issues. And I'm, as a former representative for National Revival and Traditional United Cabinet of Belarus, led by Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, there I lead these cultural issues. I know how culture is important today, because Belarus is under threat of Russification and militarization. Lukashenko and Putin are fighting everything which is connecting us to our Belarusian roots. That's why this embroidery by Rufina Balzlova and so many people around the world is so important. And also, we are rising up the issue of Belarusian political prisoners. We have more than 100 political prisoners at the moment, and each day people are detained. That's why saying their names, saying why they were detained, why are still the hostages of Lukashenko is so important. We are fighting for stopping repression. We are fighting for free elections for Belarus, and Belarusian society is ready for this.
And you talk about free elections. What hope is there for a new guard to take over and bring Belarus into a new democratic period of its history?
At the beginning of the year, we will face next non-elections or elections for Lukashenko. We cannot call these free elections because we don't have free candidates, we don't have free debate, we don't have free independent media. That is why we cannot say that Belarusians have fight and have right to choose the person they want. That is why these are no elections. And we call European institutions not to collaborate with Lukashenko and not to say that, okay, now we can turn the page and say now he is legitimate. He is not. Belarusians know that he is not. And we'll see how these elections will look like. I mean that people probably will not go to the polling stations. If they can, they will vote for not for, but against all the candidates, because all the candidates on the list are from one side, from Lukashenko's side.
Thank you so much, Alina, for explaining that to me today.
Thank you so much.
And with that so-called election scheduled for early next year, all eyes will be on Minsk to see how that unfolds. This is Angela Skujins in Brussels for TVP World.
The Biden administration is in talks with Turkey, attempting to get more information on the whereabouts of Austin Tice. During last evening's press briefing, the White House press secretary said the American government does not know where the American journalist currently is, or even if he's still alive.
Finding Austin Tice is a top priority of this administration. The FBI and State Department have offered up to $11 million in reward to anyone who can provide information. We do not know where he is located. We do not know. But we continue to hope that he is alive. And I think that's what you hear from this president, that he is hopeful, that he is still alive, and we're talking through certainly this with the Turks and others to find him and to bring him home, and that is our commitment from this president. I will say more broadly to answer the question, there is no indication that he's not alive. But there's also no indication about his location or his condition.
And that's all on this news bulletin. I'm Jonasz Czerwiński. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.